Okay, for today, actually, there has been a lot of interest for this topic, even though there's not as many in person, there has been more than ever online. Um, Feeling you don't belong, how early experiences shape the way we relate today. I chose this topic because a lot of clients are actually coming in with a issue that they would call self-doubts or low self-worth. And usually they don't relate it back to the feeling of not belonging. This is something that they may be aware of or are not aware of, but that then eventually comes up in our hypnotherapy sessions from the unconscious mind. And through years and years and years of doing work in your unconscious mind, I realized that this is actually something that a lot of people are struggling with, that they feel like they don't belong. Like, even if on the outside they may feel or seem like, very likable people and are very popular and maybe even know a lot of people, internally they experience a sense of not belonging anywhere, or easily even getting triggered, feeling excluded or left out. Just, yeah, not belonging. And again, most of the clients are not very aware of this. This is just a side experience that they're having. What they come in to address is a low self-worth. Okay, so I wanted to bring this topic that lies at the root a lot of times up now, so we all can become a bit more conscious of it. I mentioned already how unconscious this feeling of not belonging can be. And for those of you who have joined the masterclass already, you know that I'm very adamant about this. A lot of times it comes from what I call passive trauma. So it's not something that actively happened to us, such as, for example, if someone gets bullied, that also has an effect on the self-worth. But we do remember bullying. Like in most of the cases, if I ask a client, did you get bullied in your childhood? Clients can say yes or no, or teased or whatever it is. So we have conscious memories of those. Whereas the feeling of not belonging a lot of times comes from passive trauma, so from the things that should have happened and didn't happen, such as inclusion, such as being supported in who we are, such as attention, such as emotional attunement, such as connection. And this is also, because it's from passive trauma, the reason why a lot of us are a lot of times not connecting our low self-worth with the feeling of not belonging and the forms of passive trauma that may have happened. For all of you, the best way today to approach this masterclass is to please stay open and kind for whatever may come up. So it may be that you feel, oh, this is absolutely not me. If there is a reaction in your body that says, no, that's not me, there's a high chance it triggers something. Okay. Also, if you feel like it's resonating and you're very aware of it, please stay present with yourself, what you're feeling. Try to continue breathing. Maybe have a sip of water if it gets overwhelming. Again, we do talk about passive trauma a lot of times, and this, for most of us, is no conscious memory. So even if you feel discomfort, you may not consciously remember why. Okay. I will later on dive into case studies, so the most common root cause that I see coming up for my clients over the span now of 6 years. So there may be examples that you resonate with. This usually is a good sign for you to click on, oh, that could be something that happened to me too. Okay. Any questions up until now? For those in person? Online, I will answer later. Okay. So let's dive in. How does the feeling of not belonging show up in today's time? Again, I did frame it already. Most of the times, the feeling of not belonging does stem from the past. It's most of the time, well, it can be obviously that we're getting excluded, but most of the time, the more intense reactions we have towards it are coming from the past. They're not a neutral or objective, mirroring a neutral or objective reality. Okay. With saying that, I don't want to invalidate naturally if someone is getting excluded in a group and everything. But if we're really overwhelmed with the experience, this has to do something with the past. The way that experiences of exclusion and this feeling of not belonging shows up in today's time is when we do hold back through adapting quickly in a group setting, or we play small, so we either don't voice our opinions, or we maybe even the way that we dress, we just try to, stay a little bit invisible. Then we always slightly feel on the outside, whether this is objective reality or not. We people please, so we're very accommodating. Everybody likes us. And another way that it shows up in today's time is that we feel socially anxious. Okay. Again, this is not just a random experience. This is how connection was experienced early on. So this comes usually from the way that our nervous system wired itself to the connection that we had in our earlier stages of life. I will dive into this later on, but this doesn't necessarily only come from family or only from school or peers or friends. It's usually an either or in both. Then I will dive in more detail into examples, how it shows up in today's time, this feeling of not belonging. It is when we're waiting to be invited. I don't know if you know that, but being the only one who didn't get informed about the group gathering or when the friends are meeting up yet. And instead of saying, hey, I heard you're going, there and there, would it be okay if I join? We're sitting there and wait. And it may be the case that, let's say, the other two women just met each other, for a coffee, and then they said, hey, let's do this and that. And so plans form, right? And this had nothing to do with consciously wanting to exclude something. It was just the case that we were not there when the plans, were made. And again, we hear about the plans, and instead of saying, can I come? We're waiting. Does that resonate with anyone? Good. I see noddings. Maybe online too. So that also shows up that we're waiting to be asked to join a conversation. So we're sitting in a group setting and we're keeping quiet until somebody proactively asks us for our opinion. Then this waiting to be chosen, that's a lot of times. Again, we're waiting to be invited. And we're waiting for permission, for explicit permission. This a lot of times shows up when we're really just staying quiet and not showing who we truly are, not sharing our opinions. Unconsciously, we do assume that being proactive holds a risk of getting rejected. So we do experience a sense of unsafety when we proactively would ask, hey, can I join the getaway to the mountains? So we fear of getting rejected. And by not getting proactively invited, we assume that the rejection will come. So the tone in our body is already set. Our body is already in the future feeling, oh God, rejection is coming if I ask, so better not ask. So again, visibility is safer when it is requested. We're waiting for the other party to invite us. This, when I ask I'm going to get rejected, is not necessarily related to today's time. It is a fear that is coming from the past in most of the cases. Because in today's time, we actually, if we're in a regulated state, we're able to discern, does a person like me or not? Right? Does the group dynamic normally include me or not? We're very much able to discern how the quality of the relationship is. Um, yeah. Any questions about this for now? No. Okay. Another way that I know very well, another way how it shows up in today's time, that we have a sense of not belonging within us and that we have early experience or had early experiences of exclusion. One last thing, sorry to interrupt, Amanda. Can you quickly check if there is any message, if everybody hears me well? That we're soothing the room before we expressing ourselves. So again, it doesn't fully feel safe to directly express who we are, whether that be an opinion, whether that be, the emotional state that we're in, to just show up how we are in that moment. So what we're trying to do then, as we come into a room, maybe we already feel energy is off or something, or we feel like, ugh. So what we're doing is we're becoming a little bit what I call the party clown. So we're coming in with a good mood, making sure that everybody is happy, and everybody feels heard and seen, and whatever it is, before we do express ourselves. We feel highly uncomfortable just coming in the way that we are, with whatever it is, whether that be, feeling sad, or whether that be we're angry about something. So we're making sure everybody likes us first and finds us very charming before we show or not show our true self. Okay. That also means in the way that we then show our true selves or our opinion is we soften our words, the tone of voice changes. Maybe we even make a little bit of fun about our own opinion or our own feelings. So this inner part that is doing that, the part within us, is actually looking for comfort. And it finds the comfort when everybody around is happy. It feels highly, highly unsafe if there is already an off energy. Okay. And we do that not because we want to make everybody happy. I mean, we may have a good, driver, but our inherent driver is our own self and our own safety. So we want to make sure that whatever we say is buffered and received as positively as it gets. You guys have any questions about this? Is there anyone you know or yourself that is doing that? Because I know that very well.
Is it basically avoiding confrontation?
That's a little bit of an other form. This is really being the entertainer, like really making sure the mood is good. And naturally, through doing that, you may be saying or not saying what you actually want to say. But your intention first is to have everyone in a good mood, so that whatever you say is perceived in a positive way. If the mood is already, down, and even with being the party clown and with joking, you are not bringing the mood up, so you're not lifting the mood, you probably will avoid the confrontation, yes. But you technically need that everybody is happy in order to feel comfortable enough to express yourself. Does that make sense? Sean, you work at a school, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you may observe that also, with the children, that a lot of times within a group setting, there's one person who's always trying to make everyone happy and to lift the mood and to entertain. And there's never an awkward silence because there's this one person who will make sure that everybody feels uplifted. I don't know if you observe it. I do observe it a lot, especially with teenagers, that there's these happy faces that are like the the good mood makers.
In my head, in the classroom, that could come across as low level disruption where they then get in trouble for being too busy in the classroom.
Yeah. Yeah, if, like out of the perspective of the teacher, naturally they can be the disruptor, right? But for the other kids, they're the good one, they're the funny one because she lifts the mood,
Yeah.
right? It's very interesting. And this is something obviously that is perceived in today's time or even as an adult as a gift. This is perceived as something that is likable and oh my God, she's just a great entertainer and always is in good mood. But that person usually doesn't do that from, in authenticity with their true self. That person does it in order to feel safe. And this is what we're mostly not clicking on. This is why it's so important we speak about this. And this person who is a party clown, a lot of times also feels like they don't belong. They don't feel safe in the group setting, so they have to do something in order to feel safe.
Take control.
Yeah. It is a form of manipulation, as a lot of our protector parts, our safety parts are doing. They're trying to manipulate what's going on, right? But not as being mean, but it is as in trying to create a field where they can feel safe. It's not to manipulate in a way of I want the other person to suffer. Not in that way, but it's manipulation of the actual reality, as every form of control is. Any more questions about this? Okay. Another thing, and that is seen a lot of times, well, in friendship groups too, but also a lot of times in family, is being the emotional stabilizer. I don't know who knows that. That's also something that I can relate with very well. So, and I think most of us, otherwise we don't become therapists at some point. But being the one who holds the emotional center of the group, who's technically the person that makes sure that those who are going through suffering are heard, are included. So they're the therapist of the group. And that can be in families too. Like actually, this is seen in families most. And this is also when we say, for example, it's reverse roles, where the child is already the emotional stabilizer within the family system, when this actually should be the job of the parents, right? And they do carry the responsibility of harmony by holding space for everyone's emotions. So maybe mom is anxious, dad is distant, brother is angry. They're also usually the ones that everybody comes to talk with. So they're like the best friend of mom. They're usually the ones who pretend to never have a problem and have it all together from early age on. Again, this is not only driven by selflessness, this is driven in order to keep oneself safe. Because this nervous system learned that if I do show my own emotions, there is such a huge rumble going through the system, through the group, whether that's family or friends, that it feels completely unsafe. And there probably is no one who can catch me or attend to my own needs and emotions. So for them, the feeling of belonging comes linked to function, like being the therapist in a family from early on. That's a function. For those people, like clients later on, it becomes very, very like a hard and tough journey to step out of this function of being the emotional stabilizer, because eventually, like the whole family knows them like this. All friends know them like this. And then like being vulnerable, showing to the friends how they really feel. Usually friends don't know what to do with it because Like he or she was always so stable. Why is she falling apart now? We don't know what to do. So this can be a bit of a tough journey, stepping out of this protective role and into the authentic self. Okay. Any questions about this?
It's funny because when you said the one who keeps himself together and never has a problem or expresses too much, in my head I'm like, oh, that sounds good. I wish I could do that. Like that sounds like society pushes you towards that being a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, a great self-reflection. So I will repeat that. Sean just said that it sounds actually good, being the one who always has their shit together. Is that correct?
And to be able to act like that and not cry over everybody and spit everything out about your whole life.
Yeah.
Have it all in and you can support everyone else around you. That seems like a good role.
Yeah. So yeah, society already had the imprint that this is a good role, right? To be the one who has it together, who to never share their issues or problems, or only when they're asked, maybe, and to be very contained, technically, right? And yes, again, this is the issue with these protection parts and these protective roles, because in society, they're very much liked. In the group setting, they're very much liked. Like these are usually the most popular people in a friends group because it's so comfortable for everybody else who has their problems and oh, there's that person I can share and just put it out now, blah, blah, blah. But for the person who is the space holder for everyone, the emotional center of the group, it is very draining, which is not the topic today. But above all, underneath, they still feel like they don't belong because they cannot show and express their true self. So there's no space for them to show their own emotions and to be held and supported. Does that make sense? That's a great reflection, Sean. Thank you.
So how do you support someone like that?
Ooh.
Just like, hey, how are you today? Make someone feel like.
Sean is just asking how to support someone who has that protective pattern. It's not easy. Probably with only asking how are you, you will not get to the root of things. But yes, constantly and regularly checking in, maybe also asking, hey, is that correct that you're always happy? Or is there maybe also something going on in your life that you would like to share? Or even speaking from your own, hey, I realize I share a lot and you listen a lot. Thank you. Is there anything you would like to share? I would like to know more about you and your life.
Yes.
Speaking from the I perspective is always great. Having the awareness is the first step. Technically, realizing, oh, there is someone who holds that role, realizing this is just a protective pattern, and deep within, they probably feel like they don't belong. And from there, just voice it openly. Hey, I realize you never share. Is there a reason? Go into conversation. And for those people, it will be a journey to actually feel comfortable becoming vulnerable. Because again, they serve a function. So their belonging is linked to a function. And that function is a never ending function. Whereas the party clown, like the entertainer, that comes in when the energy is off, right? That person is always a stabilizer, always there. That's a never off role. Yeah. Yeah. Any more questions about this? No? Okay. Then another pattern that we do see is that we're quickly accepting distance without checking. So when we feel like deep within we don't belong, we just assume that distance is normal unconsciously. Okay? So we may assume others are busy, or we do rationalize and excuse withdrawal or exclusion. And we also do avoid, here we come to the avoidance, to inquire why they withdraw. Again, we just assume it's normal. Underneath is, for most people, a deep rejection wound. So they don't even want to bother thinking about what happened or feeling into why somebody is withdrawing, because they're so scared of getting rejected. So we better just let it be. Silence feels safer than clarification. This is also a very, very common pattern of today's time of people who feel like they don't belong. Then this may also be something that a lot of people can resonate with, because this is also something that in society a lot of times gets praised as good, which is being the quiet one, the observer, and being the one who listens more than engage, not cause any trouble, quiet, like they observe the group dynamics. And if they comment on anything, it's rather from the outside. Like it's maybe one sentence, it's maybe one time that they engage in a, in a discussion or in a communication setting, but not actively in communication. And this is also just the protector part doing its thing in order to avoid visibility, because closeness and being visible doesn't feel safe. And naturally, being the observer in a group when everybody else is engaging and communicating does make you feel like you don't belong. But you do that because you already carried the feeling of not belonging within. It's already within you, so you're acting upon it. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with anyone? Yeah, I see. Alina's just pointing. I see the shoulders slumping. That's why I'm asking. Yeah. And again, it's not a bad thing. It is just a protector part. It's a part within you that wants to keep you safe. And it's not your core self, your true self in full expression. It's a protector part in order to feel safer. Okay. Well, my absolute standard answer would be hypnotherapy, and I know behind the camera they're cheering for it. um, the question was how to remove protector parts or safekeepers. Um,
Yeah.
it is actually, there's so many things you could do apart from hypnotherapy. Naturally, hypnotherapy is very helpful. But the main goal from whatever you do is to create safety within your system. So you could also start with actually working on your nervous system. So really learning techniques how to regulate your nervous system when you feel unsafe. That means that while you're in that group setting, you maybe start to begin to breathe box breathing. That's for in, for holding, for out, for holding. Or you start to begin to breathe abdominally, which is a calming breath. So you move from breathing in your chest and being tense into trying to relax your muscles and breathe in your belly. So this is something you can very consciously do in those moments, so that your protector parts gets the cue from your nervous system, okay, it's safe to relax and let go a little bit. Because those protector parts are as old as the unsafe parts, like the rejected parts. They're both super, like from far way back. The thing is that those protector parts, they didn't realize that in today's time, there's actually no threat. they're also acting upon this old wound. So the goal for whatever modality you do, and whether that is with yourself or with a therapist, is to recreate safety and group settings. And naturally, deeper work with those inner parts, also shadow work, that Laura does a lot, is fantastic. We do parts therapy also in hypnotherapy. So these protector parts can relax. They realize, oh, I don't need to protect anymore in today's time. There's another great modality for everyone, also online. And the book is fantastic if you like self-help books. It's called Internal Family Systems, which would direct exactly those inner parts, so you can work with the inner parts. And the book that I'm referring to is called No Bad Parts. The author is Richard Schwartz. Schwartz. That's very German. Schwarz. So Richard, and the last name is Schar. I'm not sure if it's only Z or TZ. I think it's only Z. Yeah. The title is No Bad Parts, and the concept, the modality is called Internal Family Systems. The book No Bad Parts is a fantastic self-help book, especially to work with protector parts. That I can really recommend for those who are dedicated and committed enough to do it themselves, which I usually am not. And if not that, then nervous system regulation, learn those techniques, do practice them at home alone, and then draw upon them when you're in a group setting. So you give cues to your nervous system, I'm safe here. It's actually safe to speak my mind and to engage in a conversation.
Is this so when I'm in a social situation, I feel like I'm always wrong. So that's why I'm always scared to participate because I'll be stupid and not have as smart as everyone else. Is that the same sort of thing?
Yeah, I mean, if you find yourself observing, I just repeat quickly, Sean just shared that in a group setting, she feels like she's always wrong and maybe stupid or less smart than others, hence she's not participating as much. Is that correct? Yeah. Yes, if you find yourself in being the observer, yes. If that leads feeling you're the stupid one and entertaining, or maybe even picking on others so you don't have to make it about yourself. That's also a form of entertainment, not a very good one, but that's also a way to, try to make others feel small unconsciously. That's nothing that we consciously do. But yes, if by believing there's something wrong with me, you find yourself in the observer role, this is also because you feel like you don't belong to that group, right? And most likely it's not because you're not smart enough for the current group. I mean, as adults, there is never, I'm not smart enough for a group, right? As children, this is maybe something that we experience, but as adults, I mean, we all, try to include everyone from wherever they may come from, whatever background, whatever it is. So most of the times, it does relate back to the past.
Yeah. Maybe it's because it's more being a teacher in a room with other teachers at a table. They're all very intelligent.
Yeah.
Really intelligent people.
It can be, I mean, you're a teacher yourself,
So
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm the art teacher.
Ah, so Sean, I'm repeating, Sean is just sharing that maybe it is because she's in a room with very intelligent teachers. So I asked, but you're a teacher? And she says, yes, but I'm the art teacher. So you're still a teacher. So you classify technically their whatever subjects they're teaching as better as art, right? I mean, creative intelligence is also a form of intelligence. So again, in today's time, it probably is not relating today's time. In today's time, you as an adult know that art is very valuable for the children and healing. So,
in the drawing.
see, that's why you're here. I know we have another teacher online, so she may be listening to this too. Um, so yes, feeling like your subject is not as important as the subject of the other teachers, and therefore keeping quiet, the assumption or feeling that whatever you're doing and passionate about is not as important or intelligent or smart or valuable as other things, I would assume is coming from the past. And that can come from simple things, guys, as in being the kid who is not in a soccer club but likes to go horseback riding. Okay, horseback riding, when I grew up on the countryside, was highly not cool. It was really not cool. Kids who went horseback riding were not cool. Now I adore people who can do horseback riding, right? But it can come from simple things as that, and experiencing the exclusion of not being good in ball sports, but liking to spend time with animals. Okay. I don't know how we get to 59 slides today. I'll quickly go over this, and this may be something that you know. Also, another reaction to feeling like we're not belonging in today's time is we're always the first to leave the party, whether emotionally or physically, because we don't want to feel the feeling of being the last one slash being abandoned, the risk of being left. So we want to avoid that. Again, this is just the protector part. It's not your central self doing that. And that also, by the way, goes for emotionally checking out. We don't want to be the one who is still in an emotional state in the very end and then being left because everybody is like over it. Okay. In case something happened within the group or within the family. For example, if grandma dies. Okay. Then, as I did repeat a few times, it is about safety. So, how do I stay connected without losing safety? This is a question that lies underneath all our protective patterns in today's time. And these protective strategies, protective patterns, protector parts, however we wish to refer to them, they do form through relationship, through our experiences in relationships, whether that be with our family or with our peers. And they actually are the most fundamental part of how our self-concept forms, including our self-worth. I will briefly go over this with you. This buys a little bit into nervous system regulation. So how how you know when you're within a group that you actually now should do your nervous system practices to restore safety and then to be able to engage again, or to be able to drop the party clown role, or to lean back and not step into being the emotional stabilizer. Okay. That I said already. So in group settings, it is sudden self-monitoring. So when we're suddenly becoming very aware, like, oh, how is my hair? Or how do I move? Like I'm moving now. I could think about how I'm moving, how this looks on the camera. This is self-monitoring, right? So our thoughts are actually going away from what's happening there to questioning, how am I perceived? Anybody knows that? Then as soon as you may be getting into the situation of being asked, your body tenses. Or somebody's looking at you. Oh, there's tension in the body. You know, you actually should be engaging in the conversation. Ooh, body is tensing. Tension is an absolute key information for you that you're currently moving into feeling unsafe, which then, therefore, in a group setting would be the cue for you to do your nervous system practice, whether that be both feet on the ground, abdominal breathing, box breathing, whatever it is. So along the run, you eventually are able to recreate safety and then engage again. Okay. Then naturally, feeling the urge to withdraw, to leave the group dynamic is also a physical sensation, how we know. And yeah, a difficulty to stay spontaneous. So like wanting to have control over everything that's happening in the group, right? Knowing, okay, next is, I don't know what's next. Turning the camera off. And then the next thing is moving the plant. That's very small things. But within a group, next is, okay, now we're eating cake. You want to know what's going to happen. And if that rattles you, that now the cake is eaten before the actual lunch, that already is a cue. Ooh, you don't feel safe here. Does that make sense? Because again, control is just a attempt to manipulate in a positive way in order to create safety. Okay. For most of the people, actually, and clients, and I also know that from myself from back in the days very well, is I did pick up much, much more easily on me feeling like I don't belong after the group setting is over. This is also due to me more having the active protective strategies, such as being the emotional stabilizer and the entertainer. So I had to be engaged. I had to be there. I couldn't withdraw. But for people who are rather, being the observer, or staying quiet, they may be able to observe themselves in a group setting better. For everybody else, it's important that afterwards you watch what you're doing. When you come home from the party or the gathering, or even when you met up with your two girlfriends, see if you're questioning, oh, did I say something stupid? Did I, anger her or, offend her? When you're replaying interactions, what you said, what the other person said. Also, this is something that I know very well, is when you come home and suddenly there is a huge emotional drop. Like you've been so on the whole time in a group setting and you come home and suddenly you feel like, but not in a sense of relaxing, but in a sense of actually full on drainage, drained. Okay. And in more extreme cases, this is experienced as a loss of orientation. So when we're really like not sure anymore who we are, like we come home and we're like, ugh, it's like, who am I? Or did I, agree to do something that actually doesn't feel aligned to me? Or, like we're completely confused about who we are. Like something just doesn't sit right. Does that make sense? Any questions? Okay. I said that a few times already. This is not your core self or your true self speaking, guys. When you find yourself being the observer or being the entertainer or being the emotional regulator or whatever you do in group settings that show the pattern of wanting to protect yourself and the underlying feeling of not belonging, this is not your core self. You still have a healthy core. We all have a true self that is in our core. Like onion, it's the center onion. It's never a nice reference, but it is a great reference. There's a center that's forever unharmed. Your core self, your true self is always there. Those protective parts just build layers on top of it. So the goal through the inner work, through hypnotherapy or IFS, internal family systems, whatever we're doing, is to tell these parts you can relax now, you're safe now, so we can actually take off the layers of the onion so you can refine and reconnect to your core self and bring it out and express it, and for you to stay connected with it. Okay, so even if there's anyone now who feels a bit like, oh my God, all of that is me, or who am I? You're still there. This is forever unharmed. This is just protector parts that need a bit of safety and relaxation so you can get access to your core again. Okay, that's very, very important for me that you all internalize this. We're forever unharmed. There is you deep within know who you are. The confusion, the protective strategies, all of this is just layers that were built upon your core in order to technically survive. Belonging is linked to survival as human beings. Okay, we're not hamsters. Hamsters can be alone. We can't. This I mentioned already, and I have to read a moment. Sorry. Yeah, we spoke about this. That's what I just said. These parts do not replace your core self. It's always there. And those protector parts, they answer just one question, is how can I stay connected and avoid being excluded? This is what they react to. And if they learned, oh, if I am the party clown and this helps me to stay connected and everybody likes me, great. Why not continue doing it? The issue that as adults we have at some point is that it feels out of alignment because, again, there is our core that wants to be heard and expressed. As children, we push through with this, whether that feels uncomfortable or not. The driver for a child is to belong. And it gets like in the family, it's extremely important, but when we become teenagers, even more so, because our identity shifts from relating to the family to relating to our peers. So I will speak about that, how often teenage and school years come up. We spoke about this already. So again, in society, often these protector parts, these patterns are seen as positive. So, oh, that's a calm one. Oh, that's a good listener. So we start to identify with it. Like, I'm a great entertainer. Right? That's a great thing to say. And everybody would say, she's amazing. She has to come to every party. But that's maybe not the core of the person. Spoke about this. So, where the feeling actually starts. Let's dive into this. And this is actually where we get to the root of things. Amanda, can you quickly tell me what time we have?
Already one.
Okay, we have 1.5, right? Yeah. So the feeling starts in the early years. Usually, whatever we experience in today's time. So when we feel left out, when we feel excluded, when we feel like we don't belong, this has very little to do with today's time. This is usually something that happens in today's time that triggers old wounds. Because, in all honesty, as adults, even if there is a group that doesn't want us to join for whatever reason, but we know we're going to be okay. This is, our life is not depending on it. So the big pain or the discomfort that usually comes from the past. And it depends on how attention is given. I mentioned that in the beginning already. Who's responded to? So again, the party clown is responded to very easily. So we learn, if I'm the party clown, I get the response. And who's emotionally met? So who is the one that gets the emotional attention and attunement? It can come from passive exclusion, from being overlooked and not emotionally mirrored. This is especially important as young children, or from active exclusion, being rejected or being pushed out, such as being the only one who's not invited to the birthday party. That's a very common experience for children in school. That for some, and then, the explanations is I'm only allowed to invite 8, and you would be the 9th person. Things like that. This is called.
Sorry, when you said the pain is from the past, and it's not always about the current situation. Okay, so you're a child and this is happening. So you're just some fresh nothing, and the true pain you feel there and then is what you hold on to the rest of your life.
Yeah. I mean, ideally not for the rest of your life.
But,
yeah.
into the future.
Yeah.
So in them early years, from growing up from young to a teenager, them years are so important because the experiences that you have will affect you for the rest of your life and who you potentially become.
Yeah.
Because you're not drawing from anything, you're making them new.
Yeah.
And then when you're older, you're drawing from.
Yeah.
Huh.
Technically, you're so I'm just reconfirming what you just said. Technically, your whole relational nervous system, so what you learn about connection, is forming from your childhood, family system, and your peers. So through your school years or kindergarten. This is how you learn how connection works, how relationship works. And the pain that you experience in today's time is usually relating back to those early experiences. The thing is that in those early experiences in the family system or even in school, we don't even realize it's happening because mom is busy, dad is busy. Of course, they have to work because, we have to eat. That this leads to a lack of emotional attunement or to actually neglect. That's not what a child realizes. A child just learns that this is how relationships work. And then realize, okay, dad is coming home stressed. Mom is always busy in the kitchen and always occupied with my little brother. If I am the happy one and crack jokes, then they're so relieved because they experience good mood at home. So you get attention. And this is how you learn how to get attention, how relationship works. But the cracking the joke is most likely not your true self. Because maybe when dad comes home, what you actually would be liking instead of cracking jokes is a hug. Or him to ask you, hey, honey, how was your day? What did you do today? Or to tell him about your horses or whatever it is. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for everyone online, I just reconfirmed what Sean said. The professional term is for a not native English speaker, a little bit pain in the. I do my best. Ostracism? Is that correct? This is the term that we use for the feelings of not belonging, in case you want to look that up. In simple terms, it is the experience of being ignored, left out, overlooked, socially invisible, or being different. This is usually the psychological concept that lies at the root of the feeling of not belonging. And to come back to Sean's question, thank you, Amanda. Amanda is leaving. It's the first day of Ramadan here I mean everywhere, but here in Bali. So she's allowed to go home and break the fast. A little too late now, but I think she's okay. So again, the subconscious is the storehouse of our experiences. This is where all our relationship and experiences are stored. This is where we find how connection, well, technically what we believe about connection, what we believe about relationships, and what we believe about ourselves, because our sense of self forms within relationship. The more attuned parents are, and the more adamant parents are that children can develop their core self, their true self, the less issues they have later in life with feeling of not belonging. If parents don't have the means to support the child in the way that a child needs, so attention, time, whatever it is, connection, attunement, usually those protective strategies begin to develop. Okay. And subconscious and body do store up until today's time, if we don't resolve it, our relational experiences, which I just mentioned, our emotional responses, so how it felt when dad and mom were always busy, how we were feeling as a child. Most likely, we were not cognitively aware that we were feeling this way. We were just in survival mode. We wanted to get attention, so we become the party clown. But those feelings of isolation or rejection, they're still within our body and within our subconscious mind. And those are the ones who are reacting in today's time if something happens. Okay? Those who did therapy, hypnotherapy with us, they know that this is usually what we unravel in hypnotherapy. Suppressed and unexpressed feelings, and the stories we do form about ourselves. So again, I learned that if I crack a joke, dad is happy. He's exhausted from work and then he gets happy. Good. So this is how I have to be. Not selflessly because we want to make dad happy, but actually selfishly in kind of a way because we want to get attention, because we need attention. It is to fulfill our need.
Is that making it a good thing or a bad thing if it's not on your true self?
The question is whether that's a good or a bad thing. Good question. And I would never judge that. In general, and this is why the book is called "There's no bad parts." All the parts within our system are good. Okay, just generally, because they serve a purpose. If we became the entertainer / the party clown, that did serve the purpose to keep ourselves safe and to make sure that our dad gives us attention. So it is a good thing. As an adult, we feel the misalignment. We feel like we cannot relax. And then it is time to resolve it. And when I would maybe call it a not so helpful thing, not a bad thing. It's just not helping your well-being anymore because you feel like you cannot be yourself. Does that make sense? So when you approach this inner work, guys, if you can, please try not to call it good or bad because this is a form of judgment. And then our inner child automatically feels invalidated and dismissed. Our inner child, that includes those protector parts, does that in order to keep us safe. So it was good at the time. It's just not serving our happiness anymore in today's time. Does that make sense? Good. I mentioned that already when I said, oh, I have to be this and that way. Our subconscious mind does store meaning. And the meaning is usually stored as what we call either implicit stories or inner beliefs, such as I'm not important here because they're always busy, or others matter more because my brother got born a year after me, and so obviously he was an infant. He got more attention, so others matter more. Or it's safer to not expect too much. Okay, I know already dad comes home from work tired. He will not ask about the horses. Okay, so we do store those inner beliefs also in our subconscious mind. And those are the ones that we have a tendency, guys, to manifest in today's time again. Because we're all connected. So within a group setting, the group field already picks up on the person who feels like I'm not important or I'm not good enough. And then it unfortunately does happen a lot of times that the person who holds that inner belief is the one who gets forgotten. Because we're all connected. People do pick up on, not consciously, that's all unconscious, like super unconscious.
Yeah.
But people do pick up on our own unconscious beliefs. They do pick up on our self-worth. Even on the outside, we may seem very, entertaining and popular. People do pick up on that. Okay. So a lot of times, unfortunately, also for clients who got bullied, for example, they re-experience that at their workplace. Because there is an energetic opening for this to happen, and the other person realizing, oh, that's unconscious. Again, the other person doesn't consciously think, let's bully that person, but who then starts gaslighting, excluding, maybe even call names. There's a lot of writing going on here, so I think that the energy work is resonating. Oh, you online. um, Yeah, and that you also knew, I know for those of you who worked with us, again, the body stores our emotions from the past. As children, we're not able to process emotions if there is no co-regulation because our prefrontal cortex is not yet developed. So the feelings of being worthless, of being rejected, if there's no one attuning to us, is simply getting repressed into our body, and this is where they stay until they come up in today's time. Which is why it's so important that we do process our emotions. Yeah.
I don't have kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
But next time I have kids,
Mm-hmm.
is it possible to kind of like store all the good things for my kids?
The question for those online, the question is, she doesn't have kids yet, but whether it's possible to store only the good things within children. No. We're made like in this lifetime, okay? What we are is based on our experiences, and we also shall not protect our children from any negative emotion because children need to learn how to process emotions. The best thing you can do as a parent is to tune to your children and to help them process. So instead of saying, don't be angry, say, okay, I see you're angry. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. What makes you angry? Da, 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 da. I don't know. My sister stole my teddy bear. Okay. What do you need right now? Usually children don't know how to answer that question yet. Offer some things that you could fulfill, such as, do you need a hug? Do you need to scream? Would you like to punch a pillow? So the child learns how to process. This way, those experiences don't get stored as trauma. The trauma/wound forms when the emotions in the experience are not getting processed.
So you hear how they feel. if that's how they say they feel, it's how they feel.
Yeah.
Take it seriously.
Usually a child doesn't know how they feel. You can ask them, how do you feel? And they say, I don't know. Give them options. Do you feel angry? Do you feel sad? I feel sad. Okay. What makes you, or you say, I believe you feel sad. Is that correct? No. Okay. Do you feel angry? No. Okay. Do you feel afraid? Yes. So give options and then, okay, what makes you feel that way? Let them talk, hear them. What do you need right now? Because a hug is not always the solution to everything. If someone is angry, a hug is maybe not what is needed. Okay. But through acknowledging it already, it helps. Encourage them to breathe. Technically, for those of you who do hypnotherapy, but that's what we're doing with the inner child in hypnotherapy. This is a great way to also approach your children. I spoke about this already, that again, in today's time, it is usually the old story flaring up. This is, what time is it? Okay, we have 15 minutes. This is something that's very, very dear to me, guys, and I hope this does validate some of your experiences and why you may be feeling like you don't belong. These are the most common root causes that I see with my clients. Again, usually they don't come to me saying, I feel like I don't belong. Can we resolve that? They usually come to me with self-worth issues or feel like, they're insecure in certain situations or self-doubting, such as, feeling like my subject is not important. So it's more that we're picking up on in today's time. And these are root causes I now collected over 6 years. And I do voice them because these are the ones that I do see most often. That should not be exclusive, that list. This is just what I see most often for the feeling of not belonging. Okay. They do come, these root causes come both from family settings and from experiences at school or with peers. What I do observe is that if we have the experience of ostracism, I hope I pronounced that correctly. So the experience of being excluded, feeling of not belonging, it's most of the times in both systems the case. It's not either or. Usually it shows up in the family and also in school. If you feel like, no, that's absolutely true. I had the most perfect family, but yes, in school I was the outsider. And you feel completely avoidant of what I just said, the avoidance may be a cue now. Okay. Okay. Again, before we dive into these root causes, guys, these experiences are passive trauma. They're what should have happened and didn't in most of the cases. That means they're subtle experiences. Most likely in childhood, nobody ever talked about it. Or what I do hear clients say most often, you may know that from yourself, oh, but that happens to everyone. Yeah. It may happen to everyone, and it still may be that one thing that affected us so deeply. Okay, so let's not invalidate it. These experiences have such a huge impact on our self-worth, if we want it or not. Okay? So I mentioned that already. In the family system, typical case, the emotional neglect. Excused internally by us because the parents are busy, they're stressed, they're overwhelmed. So our internal belief system already started to protect ourselves with saying, yeah, but they have to work. They're so busy because either work is important or we need food or whatever it is. The fact out of your perspective is that you were emotionally neglected, so you didn't get enough attention. Okay. Then feeling emotionally alone. This is usually the case when there is a lack of attunement. So you can be in your family the whole time. Everyone can be at home the whole time. But nobody is encouraging you or being interested in who you are as a child. You do the same sport as dad and your brother because it's normal to play soccer, whatever it is. Nobody is interested in who you are. That leads to feeling emotionally alone. Another thing is you're alone with your emotions because emotions are dismissed. As in, I do hear that here in Indonesia a lot. Just let it go. Just let it go. A child cannot just let it go. If a child is sad or angry, they need someone. Okay? Another root in the family system, this is something that came up a lot recently, is being excluded amongst siblings. So let's say it's 3 siblings and 2 siblings are like besties. That does have an impact on your self-worth because you're the one who doesn't belong, who doesn't fit into this dynamic. Okay. Another one that's popping up a lot is that the older siblings have their own friends. So that there is technically how would I say that in English? At some point, one child outgrows the other, so they don't want to play anymore. And there is a crack or interruption in the connection. Suddenly, my older sister only wants to play with her best friend, and I'm not cool enough to join. That leaves a huge impact on the self-worth, feeling like I don't belong. And so children also start to question, what can I do to belong? What do I have to change in order to be cool enough to play with them? And this is also something that I do see a lot is being the different one in the family. This is funny enough, relating a little bit to the example you mentioned with being a teacher and being the art teacher, and they have, their subjects. Also in family system, being the one who's maybe more sensitive or who's more creative and not good in math or languages or whatever the family is like as a whole good in. This does leave an imprint on the self-worth, even if the family do their best to not dismiss this or to not belittle this in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But we realize we're different. I actually don't want to deal with these numbers. I want to paint my horse. I don't know why horse today, but I want to paint my horse. Also, what I do see a lot, and those who are on the other side of the world, they know that because they trained with us, feeling different because we're more connected with the unseen. So whether this is because we're a child that sees ghosts or spirits, or that is just more emotionally attuned or intuitive, in a family that is super left-brained, academic, that does send a message of, okay, something is wrong with me. Because that academic family certainly will tell you ghosts do not exist or you're too emotional. Okay. Then, how this shapes your subconscious. So this is what plays out in today's time. When when a child is experiencing inclusion, there usually is a consistency within the relationship. When there is inconsistency in the relationship, this is already a form of exclusion. And the child learns, sometimes I'm included, sometimes I'm not, sometimes mom is attuned, sometimes not. That also has an effect because our emotional wall is not fully met, not fully validated and acknowledged. And again, for children, this is extremely important because they cannot process emotions themselves. They physically cannot. So they need that. And we learned that my way of being different doesn't fit in here. So I'm just not fitting in here. The typical inner beliefs, I spoke about this a few times already. So I'm too much, something is wrong with me, I'm not right for the people around me, for those academics. um, Another inner belief is I should not expect emotional availability. This, by the way, is also having a huge impact on our attachment patterns, on the partners we choose in today's time. My way of feeling is less important, I'm less important, or I'm insignificant. And the biggest one is if I want to belong, I have to change, I have to adapt. This is all unconscious. This is usually not something that we do think. If I want to belong, I have to change. So what do I do? That's not a train of thought that we have in today's time. These are inner beliefs that form usually within the family system already. And again, the self-worth becomes linked to being easy, being adaptable, undemanding, and acceptable rather than authentic. As children, again, this may work because it keeps us safe. As adults, we suddenly feel drained, we feel out of alignment, something just doesn't feel right. Now, the root cause is with friends. And these are actually, in all honesty, this feeling of not belonging, I do see pop up even more with friends and in school. So these are really the ones that if that something is resonating with you, it may be worthwhile to dig around a little bit. Okay. Something that pops up very often, and that's very heartbreaking for me personally, actually, to hear with clients is suddenly being ghosted or ignored by your best friend or one of your best friends in school. This is something that we as children cannot make, or teenagers cannot make cognitive sense of. The only thing that we can do is start to believe there must be something wrong with me. Like she suddenly has a new group of friends. There must be something wrong with me. Then another one is if the child or teenager goes through a major life event, such as the sudden loss of a parent, this naturally leads to a lot of emotions, a very difficult experience, and to a certain level also for the child or the teenager to having to mature before the age actually. And this automatically leads to a lack of connection because the other kids cannot understand how I feel or they're overwhelmed. Not everyone loses their father with 12 years old. Then this is also something that I do see a lot, especially, no, actually here too in Indonesia. Here too in Indonesia. Because like this feeling different because of the family background here in Indonesia. For those of you who are not here, we have Indonesia in itself being a little bit xenophobic towards each other when there's, for example, people who have Chinese heritage in the family lineage or whatever mix there is going on. And I also do see that in Europe or the Western countries a lot. For example, people who come from a Turkish family who migrated to Germany. Very, very common. Even Italians who moved to Switzerland. They're the pizza makers. You know, like this feeling different and actually being different is nothing that is embraced within children. I mean, in today's time, it's better, but back then, it wasn't as good as in inclusion, but also the child in itself carries already the feeling of I'm different. A child doesn't want to be different. A child doesn't want to be called Chindo. I think that's what's said. Or a child doesn't want to be called a pizza maker. Even though that may not be meant rude, Like if a child is called the blonde one, nobody cares. But if you're the pizza maker, you already feel different, right? And children obviously realize that they're different. At home, they have a different setting, different religion, different traditions, and so on and so forth. I have some clients, actually, that was last week. I had a client who said, I actually never learned my family language, like from the country of origin, because she wanted to make sure that nobody knows that her family is from there. So she only spoke English. They migrated to England from a Soviet country. And then I mentioned that already before, typical cases being the only one not invited to birthday parties. Very typical case in school, being the last one to be chosen for this sports team in sport class. Because, I don't know, you're the least sporty. Or the last one to be chosen for a group work on, I don't know, French history, because your French is the least good or whatever it is. Very, very common. And I mentioned that one also too, not doing what the cool kids do. So being into horseback riding. I mentioned that also too. Peer relationships are a very powerful mirror for identity. In the early years, our identity, self-worth forms around our family system. Later on, as soon as we come into teenage years, usually it's around our peers. Okay. And they do give as unconsciously hints on our social value and also social hierarchy. What is wanted, who is cool, who's not cool, what subject is good, what not, like all these things. What hobby is good, what not. What clothes, also a thing for inclusion, which clothes you're wearing, whether you're wearing the Adidas sweater or not, when everybody has it. Like back in the days when I was small, these Adidas Superstar shoes was the thing. These super heavy white sneakers with the three stripes on the side. And depending on which color you had, you were cool or not, like from the stripes, right? I had turquoise one that was accepted. Yeah. And typical inner beliefs that form especially in your school experiences and in teenage years. I'm not chosen. I'm less interesting than others. I don't really belong to the group. I'm only welcome if I fit in, if I change. And if I show who I really am, I risk losing connection. I actually do see, again, I mentioned that already, I do see that these experiences at school do hold an even bigger impact than the family on our self-worth and how we relate to others. I have to say, even in our romantic relationships, these root causes do show up if clients come in with anxious attachment. Like clients would never think that. They would think, oh, it's about my dad leaving me when I was 3, which can be the case, by the way, can be one of the root causes, but this usually comes up at some point too. And the self-worth becomes connected to popularity, approval, similarity, and the social position. That is also something that we learn within the school. That is usually nothing that is happening. Like in a family, popularity is usually not a thing. Okay. Then the common thread, whether with family or peers, our subconscious mind learns. This is actually in itself a common thread. Our early relational experiences is what we're experiencing in today's time. So we learn where we stand, whether it's safe to be visible, and how much space we can take up. Okay. And it becomes more of an inner position. For most of the people, if we don't dive into hypnosis and unravel those memories, they're not conscious memories. They're something you feel in today's time without a memory of specific situations. Because again, you don't really recall feeling like, I don't know, embarrassed because your sneakers were pink and not turquoise. You may remember, but most of the time, these what we call little things we don't remember. For the teenager, those are major experiences. As adults, we dismiss them and classify them as not important. Like I even have enough clients when they come out of hypnosis, have a huge emotional release, come out of hypnosis, and they say, was that really important? Why do you think you felt, so much grief and rejection? That I also mentioned, present situations are often triggers, not causes. And these triggers can be, that doesn't have to be being excluded. That doesn't have to be being the only one not invited. They can be silence. It can be that we wait for the reply of the person inviting. That can already trigger it. It can be indeed that two friends want to go for a coffee alone, which is totally fine. If that triggers us, that usually is not about these two friends not liking us. And more triggers can also be if, the others are less responsive. Like if we feel not as much as coming back. The reason why it triggers is because our subconscious mind doesn't match the present with the past. So our present self knows that if they go and have a coffee and talk about, I don't know, a book that they both read, it has nothing to do about me. Our consciously, our adult self knows that. And we do react very unconsciously to tone, rhythm, availability, similarity, very, very unconsciously. Most of the times we're not aware of what that reminds us of. I think we're going to jump over this because I mentioned that already. For those of you online, we're a bit over time. If you need to leave, I hope to see you soon. If you stay, please stay. Does any one of you three here need to go? No? I'll be finished in 5 minutes. 5 to 10. Now, how it forms our self-worth, because again, this is usually what we do experience in today's time, like self-doubting, doubting ourselves when we're in a group, not feeling confident, holding back, feeling anxious. Our self-worth is formed in relationship. So when this relationship context is absent, when it's inconsistent, this is when we start to learn what to believe about ourselves. Usually in childhood, in our teenage years. This not belonging, and this is the inner belief I hear the most. These two actually. This not being included, not feeling like belonging, does not make sense to us as a child. Because they're all together, they all get along well. Why am I not invited? Why do I not belong? The only thing that a child can do in that situation is starting to believe that there is something wrong with me. A child doesn't stand there and think they're all together, so there must be something wrong with them. I'm alone here, so I'm good. A child doesn't do that. Okay? Linked to that, I'm not good enough. So these are the two most heard inner beliefs that clients say. Something is wrong with me and I'm not good enough. There is no other way a child can deal with exclusion, ever. It does not make sense. And especially, let's say it happens in school, and there's no family system where the child feels like I can come home and share it, and in my family I'm still seen and loved for who I am. If this is the case, great, then that probably doesn't cause such harm. But usually this is something that I experience and that is either dismissed or not even talked about at home, or there's no space for the child. Now you ask me what to do. Not the protector parts, I gave you the answer already. So if you recall, I assume you all recall a situation where you felt like you don't belong. If you want to take a picture of this, you may do so, by the way. If you recall a recent situation where you felt like you don't belong or you're different, please sit down with yourself and map that out. Write down what happened. Like, what was the situation? Where was I at? What happened? Who was in the room? Was it daytime, nighttime, whatever it is? To collect the facts. What happened? What happened that made me feel excluded or like I don't belong? Usually that answer is very hard because most of the time nothing actually happened, just a feeling, right? So, how did I feel? How did you feel? Did I feel rejected? Did I feel empty? Did I feel scared? Did I feel anxious, tense? How did I feel? Go into your bodily response. Where in my body did I feel it the strongest? And when you map that out, map it out. Try to recall that sensation in your body. Like, where in my body did I feel the rejection the strongest? That could, for example, be in the chest or in the stomach, a tightness, whatever it is. And then it becomes very intuitively and how you get access to your subconscious mind, so to your memories. What does it remind you of? Very intuitively. And for most of us, usually there's one person coming to mind, even if it's your best friend's sister. Let that come to mind and just explore, why is my sister coming to mind now? Maybe there's memories bubbling up, maybe not. But just acknowledge that. Try not to push it away or invalidate it. No, but my sister was always nice. No, it's not about that. It's not about blaming anyone. It's about your experience. Okay? And if you have access to a memory, so let's say your best friend's sister is coming to mind, and let's say you suddenly recall her having a best friend when you were 8. Ask yourself, what would I have needed? And just by answering that question, by acknowledging what happened, you're beginning to heal. By just realizing what you would have needed and maybe telling yourself, if I could have done it, I would have given it to you. I tried to give it to you now. Whether that be a hug or whether that be, a best friend, or whether that be, I would have needed a day in nature, go do that. Okay? Either picture yourself doing it or do it. But the acknowledgement is the key. Any questions about this exercise? Yeah.
Is it like the physical?
Physical. Mm-hmm. For example, when the internal rejection, here is I felt rejected. If that is what you felt. Your body usually, that is not always the case, yeah, but usually shows rejection as a tightness in the chest or in the stomach. That would be a physical response, a bodily response. So the tightness in the stomach. Emotions always show up as sensations in the body, sometimes very strongly, sometimes subtle. Tension in the shoulders, very, very common when a protector part is present, because it's usually a feeling of unsafety. Okay, any more questions about this? Yeah, so this exercise is naturally valuable because it does allow us to go back into our subconscious mind and reconnect with memories, which is called social data. And it's also a training for discernment. So we learn to separate what actually happened here today in this room and what belongs to the past. Because we go reflect on what does it remind me of, this feeling. And there is another exercise, which is just more open. Like this inner mapping is just really like, this is, if you do it honestly and properly, it is really going down to the root and being brutally honest with yourself. A more simple inner check is, how did I feel in the group setting? How would I feel if I would be taking up more space, or if I would have taken up more space? Or when I would have asked it what I need. Like sometimes, for a simple example, in a setting like this, like we're in, there may be someone of you who needs to go to the bathroom very urgently and who is not wanting to ask because they don't want to interrupt. So ask yourself, if you would have asked what you need, such as, can I go to the bathroom? How would you have felt? Probably uncomfortable. Okay, what would have made you feel uncomfortable? Well, everybody would have looked at me. What about this is uncomfortable? I try to dig a little bit. Okay. And a cue always is when we feel relieved if we can stay small. So if we feel like, okay, now that I don't need to ask for the bathroom break, I can relax. Not just physically. So the relief is the signal. If you are allowed to stay small, let's say, if we would do a sharing circle and I would not call out names and it's never your turn and you feel the relief, that would be the signal that there is actually something happening in the group setting. Okay. And the question would be, if you experience this feeling of unsafety in whatever way, shape, or form that is, what do I need to feel more safe? And answer that question. What do I need to feel more safe? What do I need to feel safe to ask for a bathroom break? That sounds a little bit silly, but that gives you a lot of answers. Okay. The question, what do I need, is whatever you're dealing with in life, actually on your healing journey, one of the most fundamental questions. It does restore your connection to yourself, and it does show whatever inner part is present, usually inner child, that it matters, that you care. So it gives worth. It does elevate your self-worth. What do I need? Simple question. By the way, also question that you, Sean, asked before about what can I do to help the entertainer or the emotional stabilizer to relax. Beautiful question for our friends and people that we love. What do you need? People are mostly shocked if you ask that question because nobody ever asks it. And it's such a beautiful question. So simple. Okay. Questions? No. Then I would say we end it for today. This one is not as important. My final message for today, and I hope you always feel that whenever you cross paths with us and Maja Healing, whether individually or whether with everyone, is that you are already whole. You are. Also, those protective parts, they're good in their nature. Your core is always present, and also the protector parts are a part of you. They may not be the ones that should be leading and steering the ship anymore in today's time, but they're part of you and they served you well. And you are whole. This is actually a positive way to say there's nothing wrong with you. We're all on a journey. And the best we can do is, if there is anything out of alignment, to actually attend to this. Make sure we come back into alignment, into happiness. Okay? So please remember this. You're already whole.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Questions? I know you were allowed to ask questions. Now I check whether there's anything happening on Zoom. Where would I see that? Sorry, guys. Oh, I see Angela is still there. Laurel is there. Pin is also there. I would need to see a chat where I have no idea. I see a heart from Laurel. That's good news. Thank you, Laurel. And clapping from Pin. And a heart from Angela. Thank you, guys. I have no idea if I would see that, if there would be a message. If anyone send a message or a question, could you send me an emoji so I know you actually send a question? If not, then don't send an emoji. I don't want to search around if there was nothing. Okay, I guess nobody asked a question. Okay. Then also I'm going to close here. Laurel, I see your question. Can you talk a bit more about the loss of orientation that can happen? That was somewhere in the back, right? Hold on, let me think. Yeah. So the loss of orientation, again, that usually pops up when we come out of the group setting. This is something that we do experience when, let's say you were here, you come home and you don't know who you are anymore. You feel completely rattled. This is usually a consequence of someone who can be a bit of a chameleon. So that easily adapts opinions of others, that easily can blend in, that's very likable. Or by also thinking actually that I'm not, I don't know, I'm not good enough or smart enough, so every other opinion matters. This again happens out of over adaptation. So we completely lost who we are. We come home and we blended in here. Then that person had that opinion, so we hopped on that train. That person had that opinion, we hopped internally on that train. So we blended in with everyone. And that can then cause you to go home and feel completely like, I don't know who I am. That can also happen. It pops to my mind, but I assume there's also other examples. So it's not about religion or not, but that can also happen if, for example, we suddenly feel called to join a religious group. And no matter what our values are, we're adapting. We're adapting. So we go to these group meetings of that religion, and then we come home and we feel completely confused. Like, what are my values? I always thought that freedom is, my most important value. And suddenly, like, I go into this group and I see, oh, actually, it's not about my individual freedom. It's about following the rules of whatever it is. And then I come home and there is this part that is adapting and this part central self. And there's technically no more connection. Laura, for you, as you know a little bit more, as Laura trained with us, what happens internally, and that's also for those of you who are looking to buy that book from Richard Schwartz, is our central self is here, and that inner part that steered the board, so the protector part that is over adapting, is going even further outside of, let's say, the onion layers. So the connection between inner central self, your true self, and that inner part is becoming even more distant because your value here is freedom, and the value of the adapter part now is what's the opposite of freedom? I don't know, whatever the opposite of freedom is, rigidity. So the distance becomes even bigger. That also means that the communication between these two here gets much harder internally because there's no more common ground. Does that make sense? It's you have to like picture inner parts a little bit as if you would be speaking to your friend. Let's say you have a friend that you always went traveling with and that always wanted to be free and drink and I don't know, have sex with I don't know how many men and suddenly becomes highly religious and says sex before marriage is bad and alcohol is anyway the worst. Like the distance between you and your friend becomes enormous because the values are so different. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question, Laurel, about the inner loss of orientation? Thank you. Any more questions? I know the camera is here and I look down here. This is where I read. Okay, guys, I will close for today. We're half an hour over here in Bali. They're already practicing for Nyepi, I believe. Right? That's why we have the banja making music here. Angela, Laurel, Pin, and also Ariel, if you're still there, I'm very much hoping to see you again here in Bali sometime soon. And thank you so much for joining tonight. And yeah, I guess you will all log off in your own time. Thank you very much, guys.